best place to start is at the very beginning, right? Wrong. At least when it comes to world building time. When you're telling the story of an entire world, starting at the very beginning will stall out your progress. Your project will die before it even gets started. But never fear, I'm here with 4 much better and easier ways to wrangle your world's timeline and history into shape, and 3 common mistakes to avoid. I'm Janet from World Anvil, a world building consultant, a published author, and a game writer. I've helped thousands of world builders break through their creative blocks and untangle their convoluted timelines. By the end of this video, you'll be ready to dive into your world's history and excited for its future. Creating a universe can be exhausting. Even the gods needed a day off. And yet, so many world builders feel compelled to start with in the beginning. But here's the hard truth. Most creation myths are interesting to exactly one person, the world builder. Your players and readers want to engage with the world as it exists now, and with your story. They don't want to wade through millennia of cosmic origins before they get to the good stuff. If you're stuck with world-building timelines, step away from your cosmology. Instead, focus on the history that directly impacts your current story first. Think about it. We don't need to understand the Big Bang to appreciate the French Revolution. I mean, does anyone appreciate the French Revolution? Similarly, your audience doesn't need to know how your world's first mountain was formed to care about the kingdom sitting on top of it. Instead, focus on the history that defines your current world's status quo. It'll be more directly useful for the stories you're telling. So if not at the very beginning, where should you start? Well, remember history class? You didn't learn about the past day by day. You learned about the moments that changed everything, and what led up to them. The assassination that sparked a war, the invention that transformed society, the coronation that began a golden age. These are the canon events, the defining moments that shape your world's current status quo. When I work with stuck world builders, I always ask them, what are the 5 events that someone in your world would absolutely learn about in school? Start there, and you'll find your timeline taking shape around those anchor points. In World Anvil's Timelines feature, you can flag these moments as major historical events, or even era-changing events, making them stand out visually and helping you build around them. Remember, you're not just recording history, you're crafting it. You need a tool that helps you do the job right. Our world's history, in fact, everything in our world, is interconnected. Everything influences everything else. While connection on that level is way too much to hope for in a fictional world, you should definitely connect your historical events together. So once you have those 5 major historical events, consider what happened next. An invention might provide opportunities, but it could have negative consequences, like rebellion or putting people out of work. An environmental event like a volcanic eruption will affect everything, from global health to food chains to religion and culture and politics. And something like a war shakes up your world in myriad ways. Think displaced peoples, supply lines, and political intrigues and coups. Change will ripple throughout all aspects of your world for generations to come. So whenever you create an event, ask yourself, what impact did this have? Who was affected? And what did they do about it? If you've defined your world-building focus points, use those as a starting point to help you focus on what's important for your world setting. On the other hand, do not, I repeat, do not try to fill in your whole timeline. When I was a very young world builder, I tried to detail every single king in a 600-year dynasty. Talk about world builder's disease. Of course, this did way more harm than good, because one of the quickest paths to world builder's block is attempting to account for every single year on your timeline. Gaps in your timeline aren't weaknesses. They give your world breathing room. They create space for mysteries and discoveries. Consider them as opportunities for future you to add details later without contradicting established lore. You can be strategic about your blank spaces too. Maybe certain regions or time periods are intentionally less well defined right now. This gives you flexibility while still providing enough structure to make your world feel real. And it means you don't have to tackle your world's entire history in chronological order. Instead, you can be like Doctor Who and drop your TARDIS into any of those unexplored periods whenever inspiration strikes. An era is a basic span of time on a global scale. Some cultures begin a new era every time a new king is crowned, or for each dynasty that rules, like the Tudor era or the Shang dynasty period. We also have eras defined by advances in technology or by philosophical and political movements, like the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution, or the Atomic Age. Remember, eras are subjective. It's usually cultural perspective and not an exact science. But here's something that most world builders miss. Eras have personalities. They have a zeitgeist. Think about the Roaring Twenties, the Dark Ages, or the Renaissance. Each has a distinct feeling, a cultural mood and aesthetic, and a set of values and conflicts. Before you go too far with individual events, try naming and defining some of your world's major historical periods. What makes them distinctive? What changed between them? What would someone living through the transition notice? Look at how Star Wars organises its saga into distinct eras. The High Republic era of the Jedi prosperity, the Clone Wars period of growing darkness, the Imperial era of oppression, and the New Republic era of rebuilding. Each has its own aesthetic, technology level, and political climate. This gives a framework for stories without needing to map out every single year of galactic history. So how should you start organising your eras as a world builder? I recommend that you either start with your current era and work backwards as you need to, or otherwise start with a major past event, like a cataclysm or a major regime change, and work forwards. World Anvil's timeline tools let you mark and color code distinct eras, creating visual boundaries that help you organize your thinking. Once you've established these broader strokes, filling in your specific events becomes much easier and more useful for your world building. The most compelling histories are the ones with unanswered questions. Who built the ancient stone circles? What really happened to the lost colony? Was the beloved queen murdered, or did she flee? By leaving some questions deliberately unanswered, you create space for speculation, debate, and discovery. Different factions in your world might have competing theories, creating conflict and complexity. Look at our own history. From the fate of Atlantis to the identity of Jack the Ripper, unsolved mysteries capture our imagination far more than settled facts. Don't feel compelled to be the all-knowing narrator of your world. Maybe you know the answers and you're keeping them from your readers and players, but perhaps you don't. Sometimes the most powerful words in world building are "nobody knows for sure." History isn't just a sequence of events. It's the story that explains why people act the way they do, even if they don't know it themselves. Why do people in your world avoid a certain colour? Maybe it was the flag of a brutal regime at one time. Throwing salt over their shoulder? Perhaps it commemorates a great famine. And that festival where everyone wears masks? It could mark the end of an ancient plague. The most engaging and connected world building happens when you connect past events to present behaviours. It gives your world that lived-in feeling that readers and players crave. And it creates a sense that your world is deep, rich, and steeped in lore without too much work on your part. Drop a comment with your favourite real-world example of how a historical event shaped modern culture. I'd love to see which connections you've noticed. Time doesn't have to be a straight line or a tangled mess. With these approaches, you can create rich, dynamic histories that enhance your storytelling rather than bogging it down. Remember, start with defining moments, establish distinct eras, and connect past events to present cultures. Avoid the temptation to fill in every gap, solve every mystery, or explain everything from cosmic beginnings. If you are hungry for legends and lore, check out our video on Mythopoeia, the art of myths and legends in your world building. Now grab your hammer and go world build.